At 94, the man who shaped the very language of pro football finally reached an age where memories stop behaving like obedient archives and start rising like unfinished business. Sammy Baugh had spent his life rewriting what a quarterback could be, yet the truths he carried were never carved into record books or etched into statues. They lived in the shadows behind victories, in the silences between applause, in the corners of moments nobody dared revisit. He was the face of transformation, but he was also the guardian of stories the sport was never ready to hear. The legend of Slingin' Sammy was built on spirals that seemed to defy gravity and punts that turned field position into a weapon. But behind that mastery existed 5 truths that shaped him more than any championship. Truths born from rivalry, pride, and betrayal. Truths that left marks deeper than the hits he delivered and absorbed. They were not confessions of bitterness. They were acknowledgments of the forces that carved his greatness, forces he refused to forget. Why did a man so dominant still hold on to certain moments with an iron grip? Why did the architect of modern quarterbacking believe that some memories were too heavy to release? And what made these 5 truths endure long after the crowds fell silent? Before those truths disappear with the last witnesses to his era, we return to the beginning. To understand a legend, we must follow the shadows he never outran. Long before the league became a spectacle of bright lights and billion-dollar deals, Sammy Baugh emerged from the quiet expanse of Texas farmland with a talent that seemed to belong to a different era. He did not grow up dreaming of fame. He grew up learning precision control and patience from the rhythms of ranch life. Those lessons shaped the way he threw a football. Every spiral reflected the calm of wide-open fields. Every decision carried the discipline of someone who understood timing more intimately than most athletes ever would. When he arrived in Washington in the late 1930s, the league was still searching for its identity. The forward pass was treated as a novelty rather than a weapon. Games were decided by grit mud and collisions. Then Sammy Baugh stepped onto the field and changed everything. His arm stretched the geometry of defenses. His accuracy forced coaches to rethink their playbooks. He was not just ahead of his time. He was creating the future play by play. He played quarterback, defensive back, and punter with equal authority. It was rare to see an athlete who could dominate 3 phases of the game with such poise. His presence felt like the arrival of a new blueprint for football itself. Teammates trusted his command. Opponents braced themselves for humiliation. Fans witnessed something they had never seen before. A player capable of bending the sport toward his will. But greatness often arrives with turbulence. Sammy Baugh did not walk through his career untouched by doubt or conflict. Beneath the calm confidence was a man who fought constant battles. Some were against the expectations placed on him. Others were against the unforgiving culture of a league that valued toughness above all else. There were games when his brilliance was overshadowed by frustration with teammates or clashes with authority. There were moments when his innovations were met with skepticism rather than admiration. The legend of Slingin' Sammy was built on highlight plays, yet the heart of his story lies in the truths he carried privately. Truths about rivalries that shaped him. Truths about decisions that haunted him. Truths about loyalty, pride, and the unseen pressures that come with redefining a sport. To understand the full weight of his legacy, we must explore those 5 hidden truths. Each one reveals a different fracture line in the foundation of his greatness. Each one exposes the cost of becoming the standard that others would spend decades trying to match. The first truth that shaped Sammy Baugh began with a rivalry that never made headlines, but burned quietly through the core of his early career. At number 5 stands his complicated conflict with an unlikely opponent. It was not a star from another team. It was a man wearing the same colors, a teammate whose presence pushed Baugh into a battle of identity long before he became the face of Washington football. This rivalry shaped the way he handled pressure and defined the steel in his leadership. The man was another quarterback brought in by coaches who were unsure whether Baugh's unorthodox style could survive the brutality of the league. In those early years, the forward pass was still mistrusted. Coaches wanted a safer option. Fans wanted a familiar one. The arrival of that competitor sent a clear message. Baugh's future was not guaranteed. He had to earn every snap, every huddle, every ounce of belief. The friction between them began during training camp. Reports from the era described a quiet tension. Baugh refused to show frustration, but inside he carried a fire sharpened by years of proving doubters wrong. He watched every throw the other quarterback made. He listened to every compliment the coaches offered him. Each moment tightened the coil of determination inside him. The conflict reached its iconic moment in a muddy game that became a defining chapter of Baugh's career. Coaches had split duties between the two quarterbacks. The rival opened the game but struggled to move the offense. Washington fell behind. The crowd grew restless. Then Baugh entered. The field was heavy with mud, the ball slick with rain, but his spirals cut through the storm like arrows. He completed pass after pass, commanding the offense with a calm fury that stunned everyone. The rival stood on the sideline, silent and powerless, as Baugh transformed chaos into momentum. The second half became a showcase of dominance. Baugh threw with precision that felt supernatural given the conditions. He read the defense with a clarity that erased any remaining doubts. When he launched the winning pass late in the fourth quarter, the stadium erupted. Fans had witnessed more than a comeback. They had witnessed the moment Washington realized who their leader truly was. After the game, the rival congratulated him, but the relationship never recovered. Baugh had proven himself, yet he never forgot the sting of being questioned. He never forgot the shadow someone tried to cast over his role. The presence of that competitor turned into a quiet scar, a memory that resurfaced whenever new challengers were brought in. The cold truth is simple. That early rival forced Sammy Baugh to sharpen his resolve, but the resentment never faded. He believed that greatness should be recognized, not doubted. He believed that his vision of football deserved trust. For the rest of his career, he carried a private reminder of the moment he had to reclaim what was already his. He never forgave the feeling of being treated as replaceable. And the rivalry, though forgotten by most fans, lived on inside him as the first truth that shaped his greatness. The fourth truth behind Sammy Baugh's greatness was forged not on the practice field or in a locker room, but in the echoing tension between player and authority. At number 4 stands his long, simmering conflict with a head coach who believed structure mattered more than instinct. Their relationship was strained from the beginning. Baugh viewed football as an art shaped by feel and improvisation. The coach saw it as a rigid machine built on discipline and obedience. That philosophical divide grew into a cold rivalry that shaped the environment around every game they shared. The coach arrived during a transitional period for the team. He brought a reputation for strict rules and a belief that no player should bend them. To him, Baugh's independence was a threat. He admired Baugh's talent, but distrusted his freedom. Meetings became battlegrounds. Film sessions turned into debates. Baugh believed in adjusting plays based on the pulse of the defense. The coach demanded adherence to scripted orders. Neither man backed down. The tension reached its boiling point during a crucial matchup late in the season. Washington faced a defense known for overwhelming pressure. The coach insisted on a conservative game plan built on runs and short passes. Baugh knew it would fail. He had studied their tendencies. He understood that the only way to break them was to attack vertically. The two argued hours before kickoff, each convinced the other was wrong. Once the game began, the flaws in the conservative plan became obvious. Washington stalled. The crowd grew restless. The coach demanded that Baugh stick to the script. Baugh nodded, then stepped into the huddle and quietly changed everything. He called a deep pass. The ball left his hand in a perfect spiral, cutting through the air and landing in stride with his receiver for a touchdown. The stadium erupted. The coach seethed. Baugh did it again on the next drive. Another deep strike, another touchdown. The offense transformed the moment Baugh trusted his instincts. By halftime, the team was back in control. The coach refused to speak to him as they walked into the locker room. Players sensed the silent war unfolding between two leaders who could not coexist in the same space. Washington won that game because Baugh defied orders. Fans praised him, teammates celebrated him. But the coach saw it as betrayal. Their relationship fractured permanently. Meetings became colder, conversations shorter. The distance between them widened until neither man pretended otherwise. The cold truth is this: Sammy Baugh never forgot how that coach tried to cage his creativity. He believed football rewarded those who trusted their instincts. The conflict became a symbol of every authority figure who misunderstood him. It stayed with him long after the coach left a reminder that true innovation always creates enemies. And for Baugh, that clash became a defining truth he carried for the rest of his life. The third truth Sammy Baugh carried was bound to a defender whose presence haunted him through some of the most physical years of his career. This was not a rivalry built on words or public statements. It was a rivalry built on collisions. At number 3 stands the defensive back who turned every meeting with Washington into a personal crusade. He was relentless, fierce, and determined to prove that no quarterback, not even Slingin' Sammy, could dominate without consequence. This defender had built a reputation as one of the toughest men in the league. He played with an aggression that bordered on reckless. Opposing quarterbacks hated facing him. Coaches warned their players about him. Yet, for reasons Baugh never fully understood, the man elevated his intensity whenever Washington appeared on the schedule. Each matchup felt like a test of dignity rather than a contest of skill. Their conflict began early in Baugh's career when the defender intercepted one of Baugh's rare poorly placed throws and returned it deep into Washington territory. As he jogged past Baugh, he offered a brief smirk. It was a small gesture, but it ignited something inside Baugh. He was not a man who responded to taunts, yet that moment stayed with him. It became the spark for a rivalry that would stretch across seasons. The defining moment arrived during a brutal game played on a frozen field where every step felt like running on shattered glass. Washington needed the win. The defender seemed to sense the stakes. He shadowed receivers with suffocating coverage, and every incomplete pass tightened the knot in Baugh's chest. Midway through the second quarter, Baugh finally found an opening and released a flawless deep pass. The crowd rose as the ball sailed perfectly toward his receiver. Then the defender appeared, launching himself into the path of the ball with a ruthless hit that sent both players crashing to the ground. He jarred the ball loose, stood over the fallen receiver, and stared at Baugh with a cold expression that said he owned the moment. It was one of the most jarring plays Baugh witnessed, a reminder that mastery of the game could be undone by a single act of violence. Baugh responded the only way he knew how. He attacked. On the next drive, he threw repeated strikes targeting the defender's side of the field. He refused to be intimidated. Late in the fourth quarter, Baugh released a pass with such precision the defender could not reach it. Washington scored the winning touchdown. The crowd erupted, but Baugh did not celebrate. His eyes found the defender. They exchanged a look that revealed mutual respect and deep resentment all at once. After that night, the rivalry became a quiet storm in Baugh's mind. He admired the defender's ability, but he never forgot the intention behind those hits. He believed the man wanted to break him, not just beat him, and that belief etched itself into his memory. The cold truth is this: Sammy Baugh carried that defender with him long after both men left the field behind. He viewed their clashes as reminders of the brutality that shadowed every beautiful pass he ever threw. He never forgave the unnecessary violence, and he never forgot the man who tried to turn pain into dominance. The rivalry lived on as one of the truths that shaped his sense of resilience. The second truth Sammy Baugh held close was tied to the one force in football no player can escape: ownership. At number 2 stands his long-running conflict with a team owner whose decisions shaped not only Baugh's career, but the emotional landscape of his entire life in Washington. Their relationship was built on necessity rather than trust. It carried an undercurrent of tension that grew stronger with every season Baugh devoted to the franchise. The owner believed in control. He viewed players not as artists or innovators, but as assets to be managed. Baugh, on the other hand, embodied independence. He brought flair, instinct, and creativity to a game still anchored in old habits. From the beginning, the owner admired Baugh's value, but disliked the freedom with which he played and spoke. Money expectations and authority formed the foundation of their uneasy partnership. The conflict began when Baugh requested updated training support and better protection for his offensive line. The roster lacked depth. Baugh endured hits that pushed his body to its limit. He asked the owner to invest in linemen who could sustain the offensive evolution he was building. The owner dismissed the request. He believed stars should find a way to win with whatever tools they were given. That refusal revealed a truth Baugh could never forget. His health and longevity mattered less than his immediate entertainment value. The tension reached its defining moment during a contract negotiation that became a battle of ego and principle. Baugh wanted security in return for the physical and emotional sacrifice he had given the team for years. The owner insisted that no player, not even a legend, deserved long-term guarantees. The discussions grew hostile. At one point, Baugh reportedly walked out of the room, refusing to be treated as disposable. The owner stood firm. He believed he could outlast any player. The situation spilled onto the field. Baugh played through pain, knowing the team relied heavily on his arm and his mind. Washington fans adored him. Players rallied around him. Yet, despite everything he delivered, the owner continued to treat him as a replaceable cog. That belief shook Baugh's loyalty. It taught him that greatness did not protect a man from being undervalued by those who held power. The most symbolic moment occurred late in Baugh's career, when the team faced a downturn. Instead of acknowledging the aging roster, weak protection, and lack of investment, the owner hinted that Baugh's declining play was the primary issue. That quiet accusation cut deeper than any hit he ever took. It was the moment he realized the relationship was permanently fractured. The cold truth is this: Sammy Baugh never forgave the owner for refusing to respect the weight he carried for the franchise. He believed leadership should honor sacrifice, not manipulate it. The conflict left a mark that lasted long after he retired. Behind every record and innovation he brought to Washington was the memory of a man who controlled his future, but never understood his value. That truth shaped the guarded way Baugh approached loyalty for the rest of his life. The final and deepest truth Sammy Baugh carried was not shaped by a rival player, a coach, or an owner. It was shaped by a moment that cut through the mythology surrounding his greatness and revealed the fragile human core beneath the legend. At number 1 stands the truth, tied to a single game that haunted him for decades. It was the day he believed he failed not only himself, but everyone who trusted him. A day that redefined how he understood responsibility, pressure, and the burden of greatness. It happened late in his career when Washington was fighting to stay relevant during a season marked by injuries and inconsistency. Baugh was the anchor. He still possessed the mind of a master, even if his body no longer responded with the effortless precision of his prime. Yet fans, teammates, and coaches placed their hopes on him as if time had never touched him. He felt the weight of their expectations more intensely than ever. That weight followed him into a crucial matchup that carried playoff implications. The game began with promise. Baugh completed early throws with a rhythm that suggested a vintage performance. The crowd roared with every completion. But late in the second quarter, disaster struck. Under pressure from a collapsing pocket, Baugh released a throw intended for a receiver cutting across the middle. The ball sailed slightly behind its target. A defender stepped in front of it and intercepted the pass, returning it for a touchdown. The stadium fell silent. It was a rare mistake, but the silence felt like judgment. Baugh tried to shake it off. He gathered the huddle and spoke with calm conviction. Yet deep down, he felt the wound of that mistake reopening old insecurities. For a man known for precision, an error in a pivotal moment felt like betrayal. He replayed it in his mind even as the game continued. The defining moment came in the fourth quarter, with Washington trailing by 4. The offense drove deep into enemy territory. The stadium trembled with anticipation. It was the type of moment Baugh had owned throughout his career. But on third down, as he dropped back to pass, a rusher broke through, untouched. Baugh attempted to release the ball, but it slipped in the cold air and fell into the hands of a defender. Another turnover, another blow. The opposing team sealed the game minutes later. When the final whistle blew, Baugh did something rare. He sat alone on the bench. Teammates approached but hesitated when they saw the expression on his face. It was not anger, it was sorrow. He believed he had cost his team their season. Coaches insisted the loss was a collective failure. Baugh refused to accept that. He carried the burden himself. For the rest of his life, he never fully let go of that game. Even decades later, when asked about regrets, he would pause before answering. Those who knew him understood that the memories returning to him were from that painful afternoon when he felt time finally overcome him. The cold truth is this: Sammy Baugh never feared rivals or hard hits. He feared failing those who believed in him. That game became the heaviest truth he carried, shaping his humility and deepening the quiet melancholy beneath his greatness. It was the moment the legend realized he was human, and it remained with him until his final days. There was one figure outside Sammy Baugh's top 5 whose presence shaped him in a quieter, more unexpected way. This was not a rival, a coach, or an owner. It was a teammate he admired deeply, yet struggled to understand. The bonus truth belongs to the receiver who pushed Baugh to expand the boundaries of his own talent, a man whose brilliance and unpredictability created both inspiration and frustration throughout their years together. This receiver arrived with raw talent that seemed carved from instinct rather than training. His speed was breathtaking. His cuts were sharp and fearless. Coaches believed he could become one of the greats if he learned discipline. Baugh saw potential that few quarterbacks of the era could even imagine utilizing. He began designing throws angles and timing patterns specifically to unlock the receiver's strengths. When they connected, the results were stunning. The pair produced highlight plays that electrified crowds and redefined Washington's offensive possibilities. But the relationship carried an undercurrent of tension. The receiver's inconsistency frustrated Baugh. Some days he ran routes with perfection. Other days he drifted, improvising at the worst possible moments. Baugh valued precision, and the unpredictability tested his patience. During one pivotal game, the receiver freelanced on a crucial route leading to a near interception that could have cost Washington dearly. Baugh confronted him on the sideline with a rare flash of anger. The receiver responded with quiet resentment. Their chemistry survived, but trust wavered. The defining moment came during a late-season game when the receiver leapt for a high pass and landed awkwardly, suffering an injury that sidelined him for weeks. Afterward, Baugh admitted privately that he had thrown the ball too high in an attempt to force a big play. The guilt stayed with him. It reminded him that even brilliance required restraint and responsibility. The cold truth is this: Sammy Baugh admired the receiver's potential more than he ever expressed publicly. Yet the weight of their failures lingered with him. Their partnership taught him the delicate balance between ambition and control. It became a quiet truth that shaped the way he viewed leadership and accountability. When the dust settles on a long football life, what remains is not the stat lines or the trophies. What remains are the fractures, the quiet battles, and the truths that shaped a man far beyond the field. For Sammy Baugh, the 5 truths he carried were not scattered pieces of memory. They were the spine of his legacy. Each conflict, each rivalry, each moment of doubt became a thread woven into the identity of a quarterback who reshaped the sport more profoundly than the numbers beside his name could ever express. His early clash with a teammate fighting for the same role taught him the value of claiming space in a world that rarely hands it freely. It hardened his resolve. It reminded him that greatness demands not only talent, but the willingness to defend that talent when others question it. Without that rivalry, Baugh may never have developed the unwavering confidence that later defined him. The tension with his head coach revealed another truth. Innovation always challenges authority. Baugh's refusal to fit the mold created friction, yet that resistance became the defining feature of his career. He showed the league that instinct could overpower structure. He proved that football could evolve. His clashes were not acts of rebellion. They were milestones on the path to modern quarterbacking. Then came the defender whose physical intensity tested Baugh's resilience. Those collisions, brutal and personal, forged his toughness. They forced him to confront the violence of the game and to rise above it with intelligence rather than retaliation. Every pass he threw against that defender became an act of defiance. Every victory, a reminder that the mind can outlast the body's fear. His conflict with ownership revealed the harsh reality behind professional sports. Loyalty is rarely equal. Baugh served as the soul of Washington football, yet the owner saw him as a tool. That truth changed him. It taught him caution, taught him to value his worth beyond the contracts placed in front of him. It added a layer of guarded wisdom to his later years, shaping the way he viewed power and respect. And finally, there was the game that haunted him. The one moment where he felt the weight of failure more than the glow of a lifetime of triumphs. That truth anchored everything else. It was the evidence that even legends tremble under the burden of expectation. It humbled him. It carved depth into a man already revered for skill. It made him human in the eyes of those who knew him and in the memory of those who studied him. When we piece these truths together, a fuller picture emerges. Sammy Baugh was not simply the man who threw spirals with impossible grace or the pioneer who transformed the forward pass. He was a man shaped by conflict, by doubt, by trial. Greatness is often portrayed as a straight path, yet Baugh's story shows that it is built instead from moments of friction. The emotional scars he carried were not signs of weakness. They were the proof that he invested his entire being into his craft. His battles with teammates, opponents' authority, and himself refined him into a leader whose influence reached far beyond his time. He introduced precision into chaos. He showed that creativity could dominate a sport built on brute strength. And when he left the field for the final time, the league he stepped away from was unrecognizable compared to the one he entered. At 94, near the end of his life, Baugh reportedly reflected on how quickly time had passed. He remembered the long bus rides, the cold games, the roar of crowds, but he also remembered the quiet moments, the regrets, the rivalries, the people who shaped him as he shaped the sport. In those reflections lived the truths he never released fully. They were part of him until the end. And in that lies the essence of his legacy. Beyond the records, beyond the fame, Sammy Baugh left behind a blueprint for what it means to elevate a sport. He showed that progress requires courage, and that courage is forged in conflict. His hidden truths did not diminish him. They defined him. They remain the silent pillars holding up the legend of the man who changed football forever.